how responsible is the global construction industry when it comes to sustainability, on enforcing sustainability, making construction carbon neutral, or concentrating on sequestering carbon? How important is that? How do you see the future of the global construction industry? What is coming? What would you tell the future construction professionals, and how do you kind of envisage the future going ahead? Hello again and welcome to CQRA podcast. You know by now that CQRA is one of the leading companies in the country for construction quality, safety and QS audits. And you also know that CQRA podcast is where we get you valuable insights from construction industry leaders so that you can benefit from what they have to say. And I'm your host, architect Shruti Hussain. What you probably don't know is that CQRA has a strategic tie-up with ACTS, that is Advanced Construction Technology Services, which is headquartered in Beirut in Lebanon. And I am really happy to tell you that we have the chairman of ACTS, Mr. Khaled Awad, who has joined us today at our Pune studio. Mr. Khaled, I am so happy that you can be here on CQRA podcast, and I'm really looking forward to having a wonderful chat. Welcome.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure and honor.
How has Pune been treating you?
Well, excellent, great. This is one of my best experiences ever in India, and Pune was always one of my destinations, but this time is different because I had to witness so many things, including an exceptional wedding. Festivity, and I think I'm enjoying the city more than I've ever done before.
That's really nice to know that. And Mr. Khaled, you have an enviable professional profile, a formidable experience of almost 40 years in the real estate and the construction industry, and you have really been instrumental in shaping this real estate construction sector in the Middle East especially, and lately also in Africa and in Asia. And let me tell our audience that in 1996 you took a leap of faith. You founded ACTS, and ACTS today is a leading third-party construction firm with a focus on testing, on inspections, certifications, trainings, and engineering services. And ACTS now, I believe, has expanded to several specialized divisions and operates in about 14 countries. So that's a really great journey for the company. So I want to know, Mr. Khaled, from a civil engineer and an MBA grad, and I believe you were working with a ready-mix concrete company, right? And from there, how did you kind of get this idea, or decided to foray into construction inspections and engineering services, especially at a time when this idea was really new, it was not explored, it was very nascent in the industry. So how did you think of that?
So first of all, thank you again for the introduction. And when you say 40 years, I feel so old, and I have to sometimes update the CV. And it's like feeling, I don't want to put 40 and more than that. It's something like embarrassing when you put all these years in it. But as you said, it was a long journey. And then when I started in the ready-mix industry back in the 80s in Abu Dhabi initially. The region was building fast, but it was not building right. And I could see firsthand the gap between the intent of design and the reality on site. And when you're in the concrete business, you can see that day to day because you're involved in so many activities. But that thing was really, for me, it was quite different, and it changed my perspective of how construction should be. This is where the idea, because when I saw this gap between design and reality, it was fascinating, really, to see that what you want to achieve is definitely not going to be achieved with the way it's being done. And at that time, inspection, quality control, testing was either considered as a cost or overlooked or a luxury that is not needed. It's not the case today, of course. But so that's why I thought that maybe I should, do this idea of inspection and testing And you called it leap of faith. It was actually a risk because at that time people didn't think that this, especially when I started in Lebanon, there was no regulation, there is no framework of requirements. So yes, it was quite a risk, but I believe that the gap that is between design and reality, the only way to close it was with inspection, rigorous testing, of recurrent testing, and systemic inspection and systemic quality control. And I think that brought ACS to life in '96.
Oh, that's a wonderful story, and it's very inspiring for probably anyone who wants to, do something in this sector. Really nice. And my next question is, something I believe that's really close to your heart. You've been the past president of the American Concrete Institute, and you've been the first and only non-American to have assumed that post. And last year, in 2025, you were elected as the honorary member of ACI. And, let me tell our audience, this is the highest recognition bestowed by the Institute on, any person. So this really underscores your contribution to the global concrete industry. So your association with ACI has been really strong. You have been on their many, and you are still on their many technical committees. You are, having new initiatives with them. And in one of your posts, I was just reading them on LinkedIn, and you said that ACI just didn't shape my career, it built it. So that is something really profound. So I want to know about your ACI story, and how does it help for professionals to be involved with, these institutes, these bodies which kind of handhold, support, professionals? So
my story with ACI goes back to 1987, but I'll start with a small anecdote. I was in the ready-mix business in Abu Dhabi, and I came to the job as an engineer, as a civil engineer, graduating from the university. And when I landed in this ready-mix place, they asked me to do a concrete mix design. The only thing we learned at the university at that time was it was half a chapter of concrete for the mix design, and they called it how to do mix design in concrete, and it's 1 to 4 or 1.5, 3, or these. This one sack of cement, 1.5 and sand, and then aggregate. This is the only thing I learned. So when I came to this ready mix, I was the only engineer in the business in the company. So I was the first civil engineer, and they said this is someone who knows everything about concrete, which I didn't.
Interesting.
And then they told me we need a 30 MPa, 30 at that time it was Newton per meter square. The MPa was not yet adopted. Mix concrete strength, pumpable. So it's like, for me, it was just a different language I have never heard of. And they told me, please, we have some books here that you can look at, but we need this tomorrow, at least a mix design to submit to. It was a big air base, and they wanted to introduce the 30 Newton per millimeter square. It was considered high strength at that time, at least relatively high, and pumpable. And I didn't know how to do it. And coming as an engineer, high expectation from everyone. It was quite embarrassing to say, no, I don't know how to do that. So I went to this room. I looked at the books. They were all dusty. And one of the books had a chart from ACI. It was in 1985. From 304.2, which is pumpable concrete, guide to pumpable concrete. And they had this combined grading curve, which allowed me to do the aggregate grading, because I learned through the ACI document, the chart that I saw. And I came up with a mixed design and I was, pompous about it. Went to the manager, said, look, this is the mixed design. I think it's pumpable. It was just by luck I got access to the ACI, and this is my love story. It is how my love story with ACI started, because it brought me to actual real life. Because a few months later I became the mixed design expert in the company. 6 months down the line, I became the expert in the whole Abu Dhabi. That there is an expert in mixed design. And actually it was ACI who put me on that track, frankly. So I decided to be part of ACI and become part of the technical activities and the committees. And this is how it started. The journey with ACI started like this. Of course, it was an honor that this was crowned by ACI, and they made me the president. It was a symbol for me more than anything else, because it comes with responsibility as well. Being from the outside the Americas and coming as a president is something that is quite heavy on anyone. And that symbol actually not just built my career, but it gave me a global engineering identity, which definitely was helpful to me.
Okay, that's a wonderful love story, as you called it.
Exactly.
Yeah, nice.
And the second thing that happened with ACI, just to dwell a little bit, is that again in the ready-mix business, when I still was in the ready-mix business, I was in Saudi, so the business was growing. And I asked ACI, how can I certify my technicians? They said, we cannot certify. You know, they had a new program called ACI certification.
Okay.
And they said, you cannot certify unless you send them to the States. So I had 20 technicians.
Okay.
And it's not normal to send 20 technicians, get the visas, send them to the States to do the exams. They said, you know, we give you another option. Why don't you start a local sponsoring group for ACI certification? This was in 1995. And I learned what a sponsoring group is. It means that a center for certification in a region where you can actually deliver the ACI programs. So I read that letter.
Okay.
And the second letter I wrote was a resignation from my ready-mix employer to start ACTS. And ACTS started based on the idea that we will not just provide testing and inspection, but we'll provide also ACI certification. And I started the local sponsoring group in the Middle East for ACI.
Okay.
So that's how ACI really built my career.
Oh, that's how,
the idea came from ACI that, you know, ACI certification would be a very important thing to deliver.
Right.
And because it brings knowledge, competence, validation, and that's why, that's how the idea of ACTS actually materialized.
Right. I'm just going to hold on to that thought of, you know, knowledge sharing, and I'm going to come back to it. But before that, I want to sort of ask you about something that you're working on right now. Cities of the Middle East are really, in a way, pioneers of, you know, super high structures, mega structures, which we don't see really anywhere else. And the Kingdom Tower, or the Jeddah Towers, is planned to be one of the tallest buildings, or right now, you know, overtake the tallest building in the world. And it's planned to be 1 kilometer tall, taller than the Burj Khalifa, right? And you're involved in all the aspects of the concrete design, right? So especially ultra high performance concrete technology. So can you tell us about, you know, how did you kind of go about the planning? What were the challenges that, you know, came your way, and about
So when you get into the mega tall structures, from an engineering perspective, you actually, gravity is challenged. There is a new understanding of gravity. You want to pump concrete upward.
Yes, upward, yeah, okay.
And you want the concrete to be workable for a certain time.
Yes.
You want to make sure that you address creep, you address shrinkage, you address so many parameters that are not normal in normal structures.
Right.
So in the mega tall structures world, actually you redefine gravity.
Okay.
And that is quite a challenge, because things like pumpability, predictability of concrete are not just concerns, they are survival modes.
Yes,
if you don't do them, you cannot do the job.
True.
It's not like you want to. Exactly. You cannot actually achieve it, and the impact is quite catastrophic. So you have to work with multi-parameters. The most important part in that is that you don't have standard or reference or benchmarks to go to. So when you're building the highest structure in the world, there is no other structure you can look at to see how they did it. So you can look at Burj Khalifa and other tall structures to learn from some of what they've done. But when you really challenge it even higher, then you need to, it's uncharted territory.
True.
And when you say ultra high performance concrete, it's not just about strength, it's not just about workability, it's not just about pumpability, it's about so many factors that will take into consideration how concrete will actually stay up, remain for decades, and you can actually predict the performance of the concrete for several decades. I think that's the challenge in mega tall structures in general.
Okay, I see. So that must involve a lot of technological advancements.
Yeah, the other important thing I think is that testing becomes something different than just a checkpoint at the end. It becomes integral to the design philosophy of the whole structure.
It becomes research and innovation.
Exactly, it's part of the whole design. So testing becomes a parameter of the design philosophy of the building, of the structure.
So that's interesting. It kind of, how
this is how we got involved in it. Yeah.
Yes, rather than something that you do afterward, after the structure is built. It's something
Exactly.
that you do along with.
Exactly. Along with it, and the feedback, it's like, for example, we had to simulate the 1 kilometer tall pumping with a 1 kilometer tall horizontal, because we can't, how do you know that it will reach up? So we simulated with all the elbows and the flanges with the pressure.
Okay, interesting.
And we did the simulation on the ground to know that we'll be able to reach.
So you did an actual simulation?
Simulation of the concrete pumpability and the properties of the concrete, and we tested the self-consolidating properties to understand which one will have the biggest effect on the structure. This was in the phase 1 of the building, that even early at the early stage. But you had other parameters like thermal gradients. You know, the core was the foundation. The mass concrete was 5 meter concrete foundation. So there were so many parameters that we had to address.
That's something really. I think we're looking forward to that now. At what stage are we on with this project?
So currently the building has the project stopped for a few years, and now it started again with a new team on site, and they are still below Burj Khalifa. I think they are at the 85th floor as we speak.
Okay. All right. So we can probably see it.
Yeah. Hopefully, I think you will start hearing that they are reaching a certain height. I think they're looking forward to achieving the 100th floor level soon.
Okay. Wonderful. I want to move on to sustainability now. I see that it's an important subject for you, and you have been actively involved in various ACI committees, and especially on sustainability, and you've been involved in the development of concrete construction sustainability assessor certification. So I think that's something really important, because everybody says, I have this kind of rating or, sustainability, so many stars and stuff. But how do you actually assess this, sustainability? How does it really translate in terms of something really concrete and tangible? And also, as the founding director of property development at Masdar Initiative at Abu Dhabi, you oversaw emission-free urban projects in Masdar City. And this is the first sort of development which is aiming to be carbon neutral. So I want to kind of ask you, how responsible is the global construction industry when it comes to sustainability, on enforcing sustainability, making construction carbon neutral, or concentrating on sequestering carbon? How important is that?
Well, it is important, and actually we're doing some progress in construction. Construction is one of the largest contributors to carbon emissions globally, especially when you consider cement production. So there's a debate whether we're responsible for 4 or 5% of the total carbon emission of the planet, which is quite a sizable, substantial percentage. We're doing progress, but I don't think we're doing enough. And the reason is that sustainability is being considered today, again, as testing was considered in the 80s, as a compliance issue, rather than a core philosophy. And if we want to shift towards really embracing sustainability, I think we should deal with sustainability as structural safety, non-negotiable.
I see.
If we move that mentality toward that understanding, I think then we have the real shift. Today, sustainability, I have seen firsthand that technologically carbon reduction is possible. You can achieve carbon reduction, you can do the carbon neutrality. It takes effort, it takes commitment, it takes accountability, it takes enforceability. You have to measure it. So you have to measure sustainability and understand what parameters you have to measure. And this is all doable. But unless we shift the philosophy of what sustainability is and what are we trying to do, I don't think we're going anywhere with it. We can do incremental progress, but you can't solve a structural problem with incremental
that kind of
steps.
Approach. It has to be an all-encompassing.
Absolutely, and you have to really look at it as structural safety. This is how people. This is what engineering is. It's about people's lives. So if you start thinking about resilience and resilient society as part of your responsibility as an engineer, then sustainability takes the first seat along safety. And then it changes the whole paradigm.
That's a good thought to hold on to, that sustainability should actually be a very, very important, like a core value
Yeah.
when you actually start to build. You mentioned something about, education of engineers, I mean, value adding in that sense. And ACTS has, not just been in the business for, testing or engineering services and things like that, but you have contributed deeply in terms of knowledge creations. So there is this, you're offering scholarships to undergrad and postgrad civil engineering students in Beirut, and also some kind of support for doctoral students. And you also have at ACTS this Technical Standards and Solutions Division, and it holds the world's largest library of technical construction standards and solutions to advance the construction industry through knowledge sharing. So that is something that we've really not heard about, having this kind of world's largest library and this kind of a knowledge repository for the benefit of budding construction professionals. So this kind of academia and industry collaboration is something that is really the need of the hour, but it does not get implemented in the right way. It's merely lip service. So how have you done this, and what is your experience with these kind of collaborations?
Again, let's step back. And I mean, at ACTS, we consider knowledge as infrastructure.
Okay.
So if you think of it like this, then it changes again your way of looking at the whole thing. So yes, we have we are part of ACURIS, and we provide the largest living library of standards for construction and other fields, for researchers, for practitioners, for engineers, and they have access to that through our Technical Standards and Solutions Division. And that is a very unique feature, because it is we have industry that is using this, and academia and researchers using this. So that resource, knowledge resource, I think is great to industry and academia alike.
Right.
But the thinking is that bridging the gap between research and practical life is quite important for companies like ACTS.
Yes, yes.
At ACTS, we believe that we have to tell young professionals that research is key, but you have to be able to solve real problems in real life. And that bridge is what makes us more involved in supporting academia and supporting research and transitioning them quickly to real life issues. So this is how we look at things, is that young professionals staying at the university and research without exposure to industry will not really bring solutions to the world.
Yes, that completely makes sense.
Yeah.
I want to move on quickly next to the topic of infrastructure in India. We're seeing really an unprecedented sort of growth in this sector. We are having metro rail projects, vast road networks,
Airports.
even airports. In fact, data centers is the new buzzword. There is, of course, private residential development as well. So, in the light of all of this, I want to ask you, how does this growth compare on a global scale, and in the context of technological finesse, skill, and also sustainability?
So India has the most ambitious infrastructure growth plans globally, by far. I think was
better
scale,
than China?
Yes, today, yes. For the future, definitely.
Okay. Wow.
So the infrastructure growth is double digit. I don't think China is double digit anymore. They were, of course, but now India has the very ambitious plan for growth, and it's happening. It's not like just a vision. It's actually happening. And India is blessed with an immense talent. I mean, the talent in India is just immense. So that's a blessing. And also India is positioned today, because of this ambitious planning and goal, is to really define global standards, not just follow them. Because once you are doing all these projects and all these ambitious goals, you have the chance to really lead in defining global benchmarks in construction and technology. And associating technology and construction is something I think India is best placed to do. than any other country today because of the talent that is available, because of India legacy in IT, in information technology. I think that marriage can really lead to India taking a different leap in setting global standards, provided India also embraces sustainability as its own cheval de bataille, as its own horse of battle. It's its own tool to really define standards. And not just the safety that you mentioned and that India is working on, but also taking the lead in defining sustainability standards, not just following what the world is telling everyone to do.
So that's really encouraging to know that.
Yeah.
And you know, how do you see you know, the future of the global construction industry? What is coming? What would you know, tell the future construction professionals, and how do you kind of envisage the future going ahead?
So, you know, today we're really, there are so many technologies redefining the way we do things, you know, AI technologies, AI inspection, quality control and inspection, digital twins, new material science, low carbon materials. So there is a lot of things happening in technology that are very promising. And I think they are actually happening in redefining the way we do construction, you know, like 3D modeling, the Revit or the BIM, building information modeling. So all this is happening today. And I think that marriage of technologies will create more opportunities for productivity in construction. You know, construction is considered a laggard in productivity and digitization. Maybe that's protecting construction for some time from the AI wave because of this laggard position, but ultimately it will catch up. But the real challenge for young professionals is to really redefine their roles from being just engineers who know very well structures or design software or whatever, to become people who embrace engineering as a tool for resilient society. So we're not just building structures. We are going to build resilient societies. And that brings young professionals today to embrace interdisciplinary collaboration. You can't be just a civil engineer in a silo doing your own design. You have to communicate with the mechanical engineer, with the electrical engineer, with the information technology, with all the other disciplines. And that interdisciplinary work will define the new role of young professionals as engineers or architects or construction practitioners, is the interdisciplinary ability, plus the ethical responsibility that we have toward the future. Toward when we build what I said about resilient society, that ethical responsibility is going to be key to the young professionals. And I think bringing that to life with their profession and the interdisciplinary action, of course, along with embracing technology, is going to define the role of the engineer of the future.
When you mentioned resilience, this question just came to my mind. That, you know, we've done a lot of interviews here at CQRA podcast, and all of them have been male professionals in senior you know, positions across the construction industry in various domains. So how do you see the role of women in construction, especially in the younger generation? You know, how do kind of women get some kind of resilience, empathy to the profession, even technological, you know, skill or finesse?
So when I started ACS, since we're bringing back to where ACS started in '96, we never had any woman applicant for a job. Today, I think our workforce in Lebanon is more than 50% women. Among all the disciplines. Most of our engineers are women. So I don't think we have really a concern about women being part of the work. I think we're beyond that, and this is happening across universities, across different countries in the Gulf that I've seen, and I think across India as well. You see more women engineers than
civil engineers, which used to not be the case.
Exactly. So I think that issue is already, I think it's just you know, took off.
Okay, great. All right. It was really wonderful, you know, having this chat with you. You kind of you know, your journey with the ACTS and the way you started. and really the leap of faith, as you've called it, and taking us through the entire process and your value system, which is really more important, sometimes than even technology. All that is there, but how you kind of conduct the whole business, how do you take your work forward is really important, and it's been a real inspiration. So
thank you very
so
much. Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you for joining us, and see you next time.